Hey Saber fans, so after a bit of a derp moment with the programming on this, I present to you Roman Props MK1 Weathered Edition. Proffie, NeoPixel, clamp card activation on bottom, clamp card auxiliary on top. Nice sky blue. You can tell it's quite muffled. Color changing on the fly. So this is actually not the first font, but here's the first font. So we got Eton Crystal for the first font. I've always loved this font. Paired up with FET 263's blade styles. Oh yeah. This is such a heavy hilt. I love it. And we got the blue. These are all Kyberphonic fonts for the freebies. I still got that messed up. I still need to change that in the config, just haven't gotten around to it. All I gotta do is swap the styles. Be easy as that. Gotta admit, I enjoy installing them more than I do programming them, but thankfully FET 263 shares its blade style, so I don't have to worry about messing around with the new transitions or anything like that. Thank God. It has gotten so much more complicated, and yeah. Much rather spend time installing them than figuring that out. Ooh, I like that unstable spark. That's nice. There it goes. That's very unstable. So this does have a Saber Essentials 31mm bass speaker in here, but I can only run it at 1200 safely without it blowing eventually, so yeah. I actually have some new speakers coming from AliExpress. What month is this? July 13th? Might have it mid-August. But I have some 31mm bass speakers coming. Looks exactly like the Saber Essentials, but it can be pushed up to 3 watts. So, let's see how those are. I'm interested. Nice power surge. Same as the Qui-Gon Jinn if you watch that video, but except this one has a blade. We got our flame effect. Actually travels up the blade the more it goes down. So yeah, the blade is like up to here now, and then it levels out. It's so cool. Our dark saber. I wonder how that is with color change. Okay, it just goes through different shades of white. Oh, that's an interesting one. It's like a washed out green white. Back to Eton. This is such a great hilt. So you can see no visible set screws here for the recessed blade. The reason I'm pointing that out is because I, for one, am an advocate to the recessed blade setup. Because anytime I've tried it without a recessed blade on a thin neck like this, it does not go well because there's very, very limited blade depth. I think it's about 1/2 inch. And whenever you put a heat sink or a PCB holder on the bottom, it takes away from that 1/2 inch, and it also loses stability because that actual cup goes inside the blade and gives it more stability from wobbling, and that's just such a sketchy feel. Anytime I've had that nice little stock PCB, I love that shiny gold on his PCBs, are so nice. Anytime I've done that, I can't stand it. It just doesn't feel good. A couple 440 set screws there holding it in. It's like you're waving it and you can feel it. It almost feels loose, wobbly. It's not a good feeling. And I mean, you're making contact with that. It's not an actual mechanical contact. It's just a current contact, a touch. That's all it is. It's not much. And I honestly, you would want proper seating on it, I would think. I know people have tried to get around it, but the only way you can really get around it is with a recessed area in that area, you know? But not everybody wants to do that, but this is by far the most amazing Obi-Wan. I've had one of these myself. It was the AFBB version with chrome. If you've seen that video, love it. But this is fantastic. This weathered version is just so nice. Roman Props does amazing weathering. And I think whenever this was bought was whenever he was having that dirt cheap sale during like Christmas time. Man, that was a hell of a deal. I think he was selling these for under $200. Like, if you've ever held one of these things, it is weighty. Like, actually, I'll be right back. Installed, it says a 21700 battery, and you know, that's probably gonna be the heaviest part. I'll be right back. I'm gonna check the weight on this. Okay, so this weighs approximately 2 pounds 2 ounces, which is very heavy for a lightsaber, or in grams is 96 grams. So you know, you can get a food scale and weigh one of your Vader's Vault hilts, it'll be a lot lighter, guaranteed. The reason this is so heavy is the fact that it's made of actual steel in multiple parts. I know that the grip section is steel, pretty damn sure the booster section is steel, and the cage on the inside is steel that holds the speaker and that little bitty 3D printed part there. Also the 3D printed part that holds these transistors in. Let's see, that's brass. I'm pretty sure this is steel as well. I think the pommel is too, because I have seen signs of it rusting. Oh, yeah. Yes. Actually, this is, aside from the thin neck, I think this entire thing is steel. This is stainless steel. So, you can tell. You can definitely tell. Like I said before, I installed this with a Goth 3 Designs chassis from Shapeways. So you have your kill switch, a little black mark, so that will give you power to the board. This cuts power to the board and gives power to the recharge board. So I've been doing that recently. It's quite interesting. Got 3 legs for the kill switch. Middle leg is the battery. One of the legs is to the board. The other leg is to the recharge port. You still got, it's all positives, but you still have your negatives, one going to the board and one going from the battery. So it works out really well, actually. It eliminates another point of contact for the positive as well. So you don't have to, you know, splice a joint for the positive or anything like that. So you utilize all 3 legs. It works really well. You know, you just have to turn it off to charge it. Simple as that. Board access, honestly, you can access everything right here. Like, you have your SD card, you have your micro USB, kill switch. Oh wait, recharge port, of course. You got to remove this for the recharge port. Got your 1.3 millimeter recharge port there. And actually, what I do with this particular chassis is I will actually clip the little holders for it. That way you can take it off, and you know, it's definitely not the cleanest wiring job, but there's so much going on down in there. Like, the recharge port is like really close to the board. Like, I usually have to protect it in one way or another. And while I'm not happy with the wiring job, like, you know, how you can't route the wires any good way really, it's functional, it works. But you know, once you put this on, you don't see crap. I've always been very happy whenever I can do an install and there's like no visible wires showing. But unfortunately, all of them can't be that way. You gotta work with what you got. I mean, it looks really good like that, so. Regardless, still a good soldering job. So, might not be happy with the wire routing capabilities, but soldering job's good. I mean, like, see how tiny that is? Like, maybe get away with a 22 millimeter speaker, but yeah, there's so much room in this area, in this clamp. Jesus Christ. I mean, a 31 millimeter bass speaker. There's only one other Saber. Well, there's a couple other Sabers that I know of that can accommodate a 31 millimeter, and that's either MHS hilts or a Graflex. And we all know how much room a Graflex has. Got the good orientation on the D-ring. Good feedback on the switches. Kind of hear it. Yeah. Very nice hilt. I did do some plumber's tape up here to try to keep it from unscrewing as easy, but it still spins quite easily. On another MK1 I did, I asked the client if he was cool if I used a little bit of Loctite on that to seal it in place. He was fine with that. You know, just a little bit goes a long ways. I do add a little bit of glue around that wind vane, that way it doesn't slide off, because that will slide off from all that. This just made me think of the KR Saber. What is it, the LO hilt, the low hilt, the Leia Organa hilt? Jesus Christ, that's so beautiful. Like, have you seen the freaking wind vane on that thing? It's even more gorgeous than this, and this is beautiful. Like, oh. Anyways, I've yapped on enough. This was overall not a rough install. The goof that I had that I mentioned earlier was this being Proffie. It's a Proffie 1.5. Loaded a Proffie 2 version 2 firmware on there. So that was goofing with the board and it kept saying low battery. I was like, what the hell's going on? You know, it just goes right back to it. If you rush it, you wreck it. One of those things. So I was kind of rushing, programming another board that was a version 2, and I was like, okay, copy, paste, same thing, boom, done. It's like, low battery. What the fuck? Okay, whatever. So I'm glad that was a simple fix. Thank God. Okay, I think that goes over everything, really. Overall, it was a relatively simple install. The one thing I did different on that, I believe this is what is it? Wolf 69 on Shapeways, I think, made this little Neo holder. Yeah. Only thing I did different with that was on the TCSS connector, I got the short pins from Mouser. Used that instead. And that allowed it to, you know, sit more flush, better, more so. And it's somewhat tricky install, but you know, once you insert the blade, you don't see the set screws. That's always my main goal with recessed blades, is not to see the set screw and to eliminate any blind spot here. And unless my memory is completely screwed, which I'm sure it's not whenever it comes to something like this. Yeah, really good. Really, really good. Can kind of see, not really, barely. Like, you got to look for it to even be able to see LEDs down in there. Actually, now that I think about it, I even used the stock PCB that has the LEDs on it to eliminate that even more. Even without that, it still would have been really good. But, you know, with the limited blade depth, yeah, it's don't want to take any chances, especially assembling that, because getting those connectors out after they're in is a total pain. Because once they go in, they're in there pretty tight unless you modify them. Well, there's another MK1 under my belt. I really like that weathered one. One thing you got to watch out for with these MK1s is, since they're steel, they will rust. Yeah. Natural weathering at its finest. Kind of like copper. Like, it'll rust in between the grooves, it'll rust in between those grooves. Even the freaking pommel was rusting at one point in time. I think it was either this one or the other one that was rusting. And I actually took a little bit of gun oil and a bristle brush and scrubbed it, and it's all good. But still, you gotta watch out for that, because even though this is weathered and I believe clear coated, it's still gotta be careful, because those just air. Yeah, it rusts naturally like that. It's the craziest crap ever. But yeah, beautiful replica. Rowan Props really knocks it out of the park on these. Only thing I'd like to see, you probably already guessed it, recessed area in the emitter for NeoPixel PCBs. Please. I'm not a lightsaber designer. I've installed a lot, but that's the only thing that could be improved upon this design. Well, maybe redo the cage to have these be functional switches too. That would be sick. That way you'd have the option of either doing it this way or that way. That'd be so awesome, right? I mean, 89 Sabres did it. Regardless, it still is one of the best MK1s on the market. Or best A New Hope OB1s. Anyways, I've yapped on long enough. Hope you enjoyed. Until next time, may the Force be with you always.